So a little while ago, the first teaser for Avengers Doomsday had been released, stating that Chris Evans' Captain America would be returning for the film and that the film would act as a sequel to Avengers Endgame. This teaser and announcement has upset many fans, with fans claiming the trailer undoes all of the setup of the new characters in order to bring back legacy characters, in hopes that it would scratch the nostalgia part of people's brains into buying tickets for the movie. I think this incident is a great starting point to talk about a trend that has been going on in modern entertainment throughout this decade. Have you ever noticed how almost every modern movie looks and feels almost exactly the same when compared to each other? And how so many movies nowadays like to bring back old actors or make a reference to an older piece of media instead of attempting to create a new and interesting story with some kind of moral message that the characters as well as the audience learn by the end of the film? The idea that the 2020s is the decade of the video game movie, like how the 2010s were the decade of the superhero movie, has been completely thrown out the window. The 2020s, through my observation, is the decade of the Great Sloppening of entertainment.
Where's the love?
SpongeBob! What happened to
all the media and entertainment I used to love?
I tried to tell them, but they wouldn't listen to me!
Always, you have any joy or wisdom in the world, bro. You just hate fun. You're just blinded by nostalgia. The newer stuff is so much better.
Firstly, I want to say that I am not one of those people who just use the term slop for something that I don't personally like. I previously used the term slop while it was still used by viewers of YouTuber Pyrocynical, who had coined the term about a year or two ago, describing the genre of entertainment as something like soulless, mindless, lazy, quickly pumped out entertainment with the main goal of making as much money as possible by doing the least amount of work or putting the least amount of effort in to do it. I think that's where the popularization of having slop be synonymous with AI content came from, because the word slop is very synonymous with laziness. If you want a better picture of what slop may look like, it's visually described by a farmer feeding pigs slop. The pigs will eat it because the pigs do not care if the food is actually of quality. As long as it's food, they will eat it either way. Now let's look at modern entertainment. The cast and crew do actually try to put effort into what they make, and I commend them for their hard work. But if you look at the people at the top who decide what should and shouldn't be made, you can see how lazy and reliant entertainment has gotten over the past 6 to 7 years. Many movies nowadays fall under the category I'm going to refer to as reference slop, or it's also known as fan service movies or fan service slop. Now, what is reference slop? Reference slop is when a piece of media either doesn't know how to adapt source material or has run out of ideas to continue a long-running franchise, so they instead fall back on having the piece of media make references to older entries, bring back old actors whose characters' journeys were already completed in previous entries, or include Easter eggs referencing the source material the piece of media is adapting. Here's a list of media I believe may fall under the category of reference slop. Spider-Man No Way Home relies on bringing back old actors from previous Spider-Man movie franchises to hold up its convoluted multiverse plot that would otherwise be seen as basic if every nostalgia bait character was swapped out for new interpretations of the villains and the two other Spider-Men. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness relies on fan casting and bringing back old actors from outsider Marvel franchises to hide its terrible, convoluted multiverse plot. The FNAF movies rely on using their existing fan base to justify making both of their films a spot the Easter egg mega hunt with a very messy and unfocused plot.
I always come back.
Always come back, always come back, always come back.
The Super Mario movie relies on hiding Easter eggs throughout the film that reference different games to cover up its basic and bland plot. A Minecraft movie relies on Jack Black Steve naming different items, blocks, and NPC characters with a silly voice to cover up its abysmal writing. Deadpool and Wolverine relies on bringing back multiple old actors from previous Marvel franchises to hold up its convoluted multiverse plot. The Flash 2023 relies on bringing back old actors to hold up its convoluted multiverse plot and also its abysmal CGI. Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers relies on having multiple cameo appearances from other animated films to hold up its extremely basic plot. Okay, I don't know anything about Star Wars, but I'm not a Star Wars fan, but from what I've heard, they'll do things like bring back old actors, like Palpatine. They'll bring back characters like Palpatine who probably shouldn't have been brought back.
Palpatine returned.
Or they bring them back, but they don't do anything good with them, so it just feels like a nostalgia bait tactic to get people to buy tickets to movies. Call of Duty relies on bringing back old characters to hype up people into buying their latest games. id Software recently seems to be relying on using the Doom brand to maximize profits when creating new first-person shooter games. Although, this might be more of a Microsoft meddling thing than an id Software thing. I'm not sure about it though, but I'm very suspicious of it, especially because I'm a really big Doom fan. Ready Player One, Space Jam Legacy, and Fortnite all rely on having big climatic moments be sprinkled about with hundreds of cameos from different franchises, instead of letting those moments have thoughtful and meaningful build-up be made for them. Toy Story had a good conclusion with Toy Story 3, but Disney kept pumping out sequels instead of creating new franchises. Just look at D23 Expo 2024. Almost every single announcement was a sequel to an existing franchise or a remake. Hopefully, with these examples in mind, you guys will start to grasp the idea of what reference slop actually is. Now, some of you may be asking, why is this even a problem? Why can't you just turn your brain off and enjoy it for what it is? And to that I say, I know what studios are capable of, and I know that many of these franchises have the potential to be really good. It's disappointing to see a new announcement and be given low-quality reference slop that may ruin the legacy of older entries, instead of a story that actually moves the franchise forward. Once you add on top of that, fans will mindlessly defend these movies and let these movies generate so much profit that all the studios end up learning is that, oh, we don't actually have to try and make a good product. We can just throw in a bunch of references from our older products to tickle people's nostalgia, and they'll eat up all our slop. So many studios and franchises nowadays don't seem to ever want to either let a franchise rest or find a smart and creative way to continue a franchise. It's so upsetting seeing big corporations hire writers, directors, and actors who probably don't want to work on these franchises since there is nothing to say about them anymore, or are restricted by certain guidelines or abysmal deadlines when creating media, so they can make something as marketable as possible instead of creating something that is actually of quality. Fortunately, there are some people who do actually care about the quality of the things they are making and let artists decide what to work on and give them as much time as possible to create the best work of art. One of these studios is Valve. For people who don't know Valve, Valve is a game development studio that is responsible for many revolutionary things that we see today in modern video games, such as important narrative focus, facial animations, and so much more. The thing with Valve is that they only make games when it makes sense. Valve rarely ever makes a game with the sole purpose of being to profit as much money as it can. Valve really only ever makes games to make a statement or justify the existence of a game sequel with either showing off new technology or advancing the franchise's narrative in an actually important and meaningful way. Let's take two of Valve's biggest flagship franchises, Half-Life and Portal. Let's start off with Portal first. Portal originally started off as a student-made game known as Narbacular Drop, which was then picked up by Valve and made into a fully fledged game. Already, you can see Valve had picked up people that were passionate in making such a project. They could see how a game like Narbacular Drop could be so important and meaningful to the advancements of the gaming industry. The Portal mechanics are very advanced, and even by today's standards, with games like Splitgate unable to properly translate the magic of Portal into their title. Valve also leaves the ending of Portal 1 open to interpretation, so there is much more justification of why a sequel would happen, unlike other franchises. When Portal 2 came around in 2012, it expanded upon the first game by adding different kinds of puzzles because of the improvements made to the source engine, as well as creating a meaningful story with a complete ending. After Portal 2, Valve never made another full Portal game because they really did all that you need to do to create a game so perfect. There was nothing really to expand upon after Portal 2, so there was no reason to make a Portal 3. Now let's look at Half-Life. Similar to Portal, Half-Life is also a franchise that revolutionized the use of technology in video games. Not only that, but each Half-Life game expands upon the story in some sort of way and has actual justification for existing. The reason why people want Half-Life 3 is because the Half-Life story was never fully completed. Left with a cliffhanger on Half-Life 2 Episode 2, as well as the G-Man retconning the ending of Episode 2 in Half-Life Alyx and creating a cliffhanger that better sets up the next Half-Life game. This leaves actual justification to why a third Half-Life game would be made, to finish the story. We can see that through the leaked project HLX from sources like Tyler McVicker and Gabe Fowler, who show that Valve does seem to take interest in finishing the story they started so long ago. Now let's go back and see how the MCU justifies its sequels. In Avengers Endgame, we see how the Avengers need to go back in time and take the stones from different points in time, snap everyone back to life, and then return the stones in order not to create branching timelines and destroy reality. Unfortunately, the Avengers mess up this task, and we see them create branching timelines with how Loki gets the Space Stone, which then eventually leads Loki into killing Kang variant He Who Remains and creating more branching timelines, which seemed like an obvious setup for a multiverse Avengers movie, that the Avengers had technically caused the branching timelines themselves, leaving them at fault for such an incident. But instead, it never ends up leading to anything truly important. What Disney did instead is retcon Kang out of the MCU because it wasn't resonating with audiences, not to mention that they didn't recast Kang after the Jonathan Majors controversy, and replaced Kang with Doctor Doom and cast Robert Downey Jr. in the role. This is because Disney was too focused on quantity over quality and pumped out a bunch of soulless slop TV shows and movies that either lacked passion or were extremely rushed to set up future shows to maximize profits instead of focusing on quality and only producing shows that not only helped set up an actual future for the MCU, but could also work as their own standalone titles. A lot of these movies and shows had no true meaning or purpose of existing outside of being set up for future projects that never went anywhere, along with using references and cameos to market the products to cover up poor writing and direction for the MCU. If comparing a movie studio like Marvel to a gaming studio like Valve wasn't good enough, let's compare another studio that's more similar to Valve than Marvel, Epic Games. Epic Games is the studio behind Fortnite, one of the biggest games in the world. Originally, Fortnite, while even still originally being a cosmetic cash cow, was much more highly respected in the story side of the game and how it used its Battle Royale island to tell a continuous immersive story through frequent, high-quality live events, which would keep many players up to date with what was happening on the Fortnite storyline, using mostly original characters, with occasionally a few collab characters that would show up, but usually had a purpose of being there. For those who don't know, the original Fortnite storyline directed by creative director Donald Mustard was a story similar to the Hunger Games, where the Fortnite island was holding the center of the Omniverse known as the Zero Point. Because the Zero Point was at the center of the Omniverse, it gave more of an explanation as to how collaboration characters made their way to the Fortnite island, especially with the faction controlling the Zero Point known as the Imagined Order, which I will be referring to as the IO going forward. The IO were the ones controlling the Zero Point and creating the loop, which was similar to the Hunger Games in how people who were captured were brought to the island and forced to fight to the death, over and over again in an endless loop. This helped create more of an immersive experience with how the gameplay of Fortnite was tied into the story of the game. A resistance team known as the Seven would also work with Fortnite players in real-time live events to try and fight back against the IO, breaking the loop for short periods of time during these events, which would only ever happen once, giving value to these events. Unfortunately, at some point during 2022, Epic Games decided to switch directions from focusing on story and immersion to focusing on creating a metaverse for Fortnite to attract a wider audience of players with new game modes and new cosmetics to buy from the item shop to go along with these new modes. Now, originally, the plan was always to eventually lead to a Fortnite metaverse, but Tim Sweeney, CEO of Epic, decided to put all the studio's resources into creating the new metaverse modes. This took away most of the resources that were going into making the story and world of Fortnite immersive, leaving many storyline fans, like myself, very upset by the change in direction. Epic did notice this, however, and decided to try and win back storyline fans, which leads us to 0 Hour, the Chapter 6 finale live event. From a first glance, you might look at it and say that it is much higher quality compared to live events being released after 2022. And while you're mostly correct, the problem with this event is that it lacks a lot of the build-up that the previous chapter finale events contained. Previous events would have been built up through how the Last Reality in Chapter 2 Season 7 tricked the IO into blowing up the mothership and releasing all the cubes onto the island, which were previously established in Chapter 1, Season 6, to be so powerful that only the 0 point could stop one. When looking at the build-up we got for 0 Hour, all we really get visually is one live event where the main villain, the Dark Presence, loses at the end of the event, and one off-screen fight where the Islanders win against the Dark Presence's bugs, and the island returning to normal due to the extermination of the bugs. The rest of the build-up is relegated mostly to NPC dialogue, which, wouldn't you know, most people don't read because there isn't time to read dialogue in a Battle Royale game. How is anyone supposed to feel threatened by a villain who pretty much lost twice? Most of this live event tries to cover up its poor build-up by throwing in every single collaboration skin released in Chapter 6 into the live event to almost recreate the Avengers Assemble scene from Endgame in the live event. While this event was cool to look at, it mostly consisted of spectacle over substance, lacking most of the build-up that previous chapters had for their finales. The only true build-up I can really credit it for was including the red cube from OG into the live event. The problem with that being, however, is that if you didn't play the OG mode during Chapter 6, you wouldn't feel the actual build-up from Season 5 and 6 from OG. Not to mention the red cube went through pretty much almost the same events that Kevin the Cube originally did back in 2018, leaving almost no surprise or suspense. The problem with the 0 Hour event is that it is lazy and reliant on cameo collab appearances to hold up its credibility instead of actually trying to win over players by keeping them truly invested in the storyline with actual payoff in the chapter's finale. There are so many instances that I could get into right now of how reference slop is such a problem in entertainment right now, but I'm here to tell you how you could contribute to solving this problem and ending the reference slop epidemic. Now you may be asking, how do we solve this problem of reference slop? Boycotting is the obvious answer here. I know for many people it's very difficult to give up a franchise they once deeply loved, but unfortunately, companies won't change for the better if we don't do something that will actually force them to lock in and make great art again. So if you want to see your favorite franchise make great art again, stop buying their games, stop paying for tickets to movies, stop buying their products. Stop giving them chances, and if you really don't want to miss out on something, or want to check it out at least, either pirate it or find a way to experience that product for free without giving the company money. Once enough people stop financially supporting this slop, companies will realize that being lazy isn't profitable, and that they actually have to put in the effort to deserve our dollar. Hey guys, if you watched this far into the video, I just want to say thank you for that, because this is kind of an old script, and I feel like it kind of sucks, low-key. Like, I don't know if I make the greatest points, but, I mean, if you get the idea that I'm trying to go for, like, I really want people to realize that just saying you don't like something and then not actually doing anything about it isn't going to change anything. Like, a lot of people will hate watch something, but that's also bad, because that means, like, recently, with the FNAF 2 movie, a lot of people went to go hate watch that movie in theaters, which is a problem, because you're giving Scott Cawthon and Blumhouse money, even if you're hate watching it and don't like the direction that the movies are going. I think if you want to hate watch something, like, find a way to pirate it, watch it on like on a secret evil website or something. And also, I know this is probably only going to get to people that already agree with my cause, but if you see this video, I think you should really share it with people that might have an opposing opinion on this. They might be like the people that are like, oh, just turn your brain off. Oh, it's just a turn off your brain experience. Just all you do is complain. Like show them this video. Like, send this to them. Make them watch this. And like, to hear out, like, my point, because I think not supporting, like, bad media, like poorly made corporate media, I think it would be great if a lot of people stop supporting it. And yeah, I mean, I don't think this is the best video. I made this script back like weeks ago, and then I got sick, and now I just had to record it because I didn't want to like rewrite the whole thing. I just want to get this out there. I might do another video, but if you saw this, I just want to like say thank you that you actually like watched this whole thing. And yeah, I just hope that us as like people who actually care about art can actually do something about what's going on with entertainment right now.